Hi, and welcome to Homo Ludens, the channel on history and board games. In today's video, we will talk about Napoleon's Conquest, the latest release of Fellowship of Simulation, the publisher behind Verdun Steel Inferno, and the Wars of Religion. Those two games we've covered on this channel, so I would recommend that you have a look after watching this one. In a very French fashion, this game is about a Corsican dude trying to conquer Europe. You might have heard of him. This is an epic five-player game that captures the key moments of the Napoleonic era at a grand strategic scale. Players play major nations, France, Great Britain, Russia, or Prussia, and they manage their economic, social, diplomatic, and military priorities. Today we're doing something that I normally don't do on this channel, and that's a Kickstarter preview. The reason I am exceptionally doing this is because I really like the team behind this project and the whole approach to it. It's a small print run, the games are already ready to ship, and it's printed in France. Just to be clear, I'm not paid for it, as my current policy is to not accept money from publishers, and actually only accept money from my viewers. So if you want to support the channel, you can support me through Ko-fi. To talk about this project, I have with me the publisher, Walter Wejdowski, that I'm going to bring on screen. Hey, Walter, how are you?
Hello, Fred.
It's really a pleasure to have you again on the show. You've been here in the past. I think it was for discussing David Glenn's book, Clash
Yes,
of
correct.
Titans.
Yes.
Yes, I think it was for that. But honestly, I hope that I will have you again on the show because we've been talking about something for a while. We featured your game Steel Inferno with Volko and Jason Matthews a while ago, but I would like to have you specifically to discuss the Eagles of France series at some point. And ideally, my big plan is to convince you to come on the show and do a teach and play of Rising Eagle, which is a game that I like a lot, and I would like to start playing again.
Will do.
So good, it's good to hear. Now it's on record, so you have to come. But yeah, so just for to explain to people, so you're the publisher of this game, so you created Fellowship of Simulation, but you're also a designer. I think the first game that I played from you was La Bataille de Paris 1814 from Vaevictis. And before we talk about the game that we're going to talk about, Conquest of Napoleon, or Napoleon's Conquest, I was wondering what made you want to become a publisher, like not only do games, but also find games and publish them.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it was an evolution from player to designer, and from designer to publisher. So I start to design for Vaevictis and for Exacim, and at one stage, especially for Verdun, I wanted to have, I would say, even more control on the way the game would be done and would be distributed. So I moved to auto publishing, and Verdun went well. I met people like Bruno also having games, in their pocket and wanting to be published. So it pushed me to continue. It's not a really profitable business, but at least it's an act of contribution to the hobby to have a small series of games that I like to see, just happening.
But
So,
isn't everything that we do an act of charity in wargaming? I mean, designing
yeah,
games, making content, publishing them. I think most of the time it's like we're just giving mostly to the community more than anything else.
we are well below the minimum wage per house, that's for sure. But
Yes, yeah, that's really true. But as you said, so you mentioned Bruno, and this is so we have also with us Bruno Lamotte today to talk about this game because it's his design. Hi, Bruno, thanks for being here.
Yes,
Uh,
hello, Fred. I'm very
so
happy to be here and to present my new game. I just want to tell all people that this game is in order to discover Napoleon not only as a tactical man, but also the statesman for France. That's why there will be a victory which is about society. We will tell about that later.
okay, but that's really interesting, and I think that's something that I tried to touch upon in the introduction, but I would like you to go into detail when we'll demonstrate the game. Is really the scale that you chose for this game, focusing a bit less on the military aspect, which is normally what you would most Napoleonic games would focus on. There is a stronger aspect around like managing actually the country, the social aspects, but also the diplomatic ones. So that's really interesting. If I'm not mistaken, Bruno, this is your first design. How did you come to game design? Were you a heavy gamer before, and what compelled you to start designing games?
In fact, former, I was a war gamer player, but then I discovered the world of deck 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 game, and I find really that it was interesting to mix the two worlds. That's why in the game the army are not going just because they were here in history. You will have to manage them. You will have to pay them. You will have to entertain the moral society, and also I think that the diplomatic aspect of the game is very interesting. You will see that the context of aliens reproduce what it will be at that time.
And when you're mentioning deck games, what kind of game inspired you for the system? So what games do you have in mind?
Oh, for example, I take an important roles from Full Metal Planet, which is to mix unit reinforcement and movement, so that you will have to choose between growing up with units or moving them. And in fact, the game is very short, so you have to move.
That's really interesting. So you came from a wargaming background. Then you got really interested in what I would call maybe heavier types of board games, thematic board games, and you decided to mix both of those universe to actually create your design. Was this like an attempt to maybe reach new players or offer a new experience to let's say grog nerds, or what was the intent behind your game?
In fact, first I was thinking about deck players, because it is very similar as a lot of deck players managing meeples in action zone in order to have different way in the game to win. And then I was thinking about the war game, and I think really that this way of manage the war game is original.
But I think maybe the thing that we could do maybe to visualize a bit more what you're talking about and that the originality of that system could be potentially to have a look at the game. The good thing is that Walter said that there was a vassal module, so we can actually have a look at the game digitally, and maybe I think it would be interesting for us to have an overview of what's the structure of a turn, talk about the victory condition, and trying to better grasp what are the decisions that that player will have to make. So I'm going to bring this on stream. And the first thing that we can see is that the board is a map of all of Europe. And was it important for you, Bruno, to really have this on a very, very high level? Like, did you really want to have a big focus on diplomacy?
Yes, why not? You have understand that Napoleon will be alone against the four other allied nations. In fact, they will play together, but they have to make alliance if they want to win against Napoleon. Otherwise, Napoleon is too strong and can win the game quite easily. That's why at that level, as a principle, I make easy the way to do alliance. They will share the money to pay the alliance. Austria will be able to pay as diplomatic points the diplomatic points of the other nation, and it conduct to some discussion that makes the game not turn to turn play, but they really all the player are playing together.
Maybe to also to show the main principle of the game and the reason, by the way, I love the game when I was presented it. Bruno, you showed me the game in Cannes more than 3 years ago, and we took the time to develop the graphics, etc., and to continue the playtest. The game is turning. There are main domains. You have economy, finance. You have moral. You have society. You have military, and you have diplomacy. And each domain has a specific color. I don't know if you can see that on the example of cards. Maybe I will zoom a bit for the card to be bigger.
And just to be clear, Walter, this is the final art because the
Yes.
game is finished, and
Yes, it's final. On each card, you have 3 color each time. So 3 out of the 5 domain. And that means, let's say for the one on the left hand, Hanover, for example, that means you can play an effect for finance, an effect for moral, or an effect for diplomacy. You have to choose between the 3. And in order to be able to play that, you need also to have a worker or advisor played on the relevant zone at the start of the game. So you have to do choice between every time you have dilemmas. I need money, I need morale, I need to improve my society, I need to improve diplomacy, I need military units. And you have to choose between the 5 domains through advisor plays and then through the play of the cards. And the cards are determined by the advisor you have played before.
And just to be clear, so this is represented by the numbers that you have on the side.
Yes.
And the different colors, they match to different aspects, right? So you have yellow for finance. So that's the idea. So it's like you have variable ups, you could say, if we think about it as a CDG player. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, to give a very quickly sense of the way it is played, at first, every player in turn, there is a turn order. So like a lot of board games, the order of the turn is very important because sometimes it's good to play last, sometimes it's good to play first. And you have to manage because when you want to build, it's better to play first because you choose. So let's say I'm the Austrian, I'm white, I'm the first to play. My first advisor, I can put it in military here where I can have the most unit to build. So that's the best place to produce military units. So that's turn order. Then the Prussian, let's say, play moral. Then the French play also. As you see, the French have more advisors. They are stronger, but in front of everybody when they are allied, they start to be overwhelmed at the end of the game. So everybody play in turn. It's advisor, and each time there is a space is taken, and of course it's become more and more difficult to find a good space for effect, etc. And then, of course, you play the space vis-a-vis of the cards you have in hands. Because let's say I have a very strong cards Hanover for finance. I need this turn for sure to have an advisor in finance because I might want to play this card to get the 6, for example.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything is useful. Finance is providing money to buy units and to buy movement points because, as Bruno said, you have to also equilibrate your the size of your army with the logistics of the army. So movement points represent the logistical effort. So you need to have movement points to move, and you buy them. Morale is of course useful because higher morale have a combat bonus, and it's also a victory condition. Society is very important because you have threshold to attain. If you don't attain this threshold, you lose the game. So you need you have penalties. So you need to get this, and you can see that here. You have the moral track here and the society track on the right hand. Including sometimes some bonus that you can gain when you reach certain level. And also below, you see there is the alliance table to show who is allied with who, victory to record victories, and again the military and diplomacy zone to check for alliance. And of course, at the end of the day, you buy units on board, you buy movement points, and then there is the movement and combat phase at the end of each turn.
So just maybe for us to wrap our head around the sequence of play of a single turn. So the first phase, you'll have that, well, something that I have to call the worker placement phase.
Exactly.
Because it is.
Yes.
So that's the advisor. So you place the advisor in different areas that will enable you to do things afterwards. But the first thing is that in turn order, players alternate placing advisors in different in those different areas. And once this is done, like, do you resolve from top to the bottom? So everything around the initiative, then everything in finance?
You resolve the advisor. So let's say initiative, for example, is not to play card, is to be sure to play first next turn. So if the Prussian has to play an advisor and play here, for example, he is sure to be first and next turn he will move. He will move in front.
Yeah.
So then you resolve once everybody has placed his advisor. You resolve advisor, starting from initiative down to diplomacy, and resolving advisor mean, for example, for finance, mean taking out an advisor and having the bonus. Sometimes you see there are bonus here. So here there is a bonus of
To income.
two coin.
Coins,
yeah.
It's called franc. It's franc in this game.
So everyone uses franc in Europe.
Yes,
So that's wishful thinking from Bruno. Yes.
Empire in Toulon. So franc is a common currency for the game. And then you can have also one free card in position 2, etc. For morale, for example, here you have a flag, which means you have 1 point of morale as a bonus. It's an automatic bonus. It's kind of cherry on the cake bonus. But the real point is that if I have, let's say, the British have a finance here, they can take out the advisor and they are allowed to play a card from their hand. They play this card, for example, and they get 2. They will get
So in this case, they have the ups. They have the ups matching, so they had a 1 in yellow, and they have yellow ups.
They play the yellow. Bon. By the way, on this card, you see that you have in red for military. In military, sometimes you have bonus, so you gain 1 more units here in Swiss or Confederation of the Rhine, or you gain 4 bonus movement points. And some military effects are not resolved at this stage. Some military effects are special effects which are resolved like a surprise during the battle. So in that case, you will keep your advisor on the track. You will not use it, and you will say, I keep it on the track for a potential military effect during combat. By the way, you can do that even if you don't have the cards. You can play that as a bluff.
It was a bluffing mechanism.
I have something, I have a strong card to play during combat. And of course, people will fear you because these cards are quite strong. And that's a part of the bluff also of the game. But it will cost you an unresolved advisor in that case.
And Bruno, you wanted to add something.
Yes.
I saw you waving. Yeah.
As military effect, you have in fact 3 kinds of cards. Walter speak about the combat effect card, but main effect are in fact a bonus, which is very often linked to a geographic point. It is a way to find again the history, because the bonus linked to geographic points are associated to history. In the first age, most of the bonus are linked in Central Europa, Italy, and in the second age, you will have those bonus in Spain and Russia. That's why you will find some event of history according to those bonus.
Yeah.
There is a important rules, a tactical rules, which is to have an adjacent unit in order to allow to have this geographic bonus.
That means, for example, if I have a card, for example, this one, providing a bonus in Swiss or Conversion of the Rhine, to play it, I need, of course, an advisor, but I need also to have a unit
in or adjacent to the space.
Adjacent, in that case, adjacent to Switzerland, which is the case here, for example. So I could build a unit in Switzerland because I'm adjacent. So there is a link between cards and also location of the army. And sometimes you move in an area because you have the cards, and that creating mini campaign or mini objectives for that. By the way, there are more than 250. There are more than 200 cards. So it's a very rich game in terms of card illustration, and it is also helping for the I would say the historical immersion, because you are in front of 200 events that happen during the time.
And just to be clear, is it one deck per faction? So is that like 50 deck per
No,
players, or
no,
is it like a common deck that they all
no.
share?
It's one deck for France and one deck, one common deck for the for coalition
Or-
nation. But
Okay.
there is one, there are two age in the game. So turn 1 to 3 is before Austerlitz and after Austerlitz. So the first 3 turns are using one deck for France and one deck for coalition, and the other last 3 turns are using a second deck for France and a second deck for coalition.
Okay, so this is also the way you actually manage to bake some history into the game by having that sequencing
Yes.
between the two. And I'm curious about because I think we touched a bit upon it, but we haven't really clearly specified it. I was wondering what are the victory conditions for both sides. So how do the French player win, and how do the coalition players win?
Oh, for a victory condition, I want to once again to see that it's very important to have alliance. So for coalition nation, they have to overrun Paris, and if there are 4 nations to invade Paris, there will it will be associated to a level of society and a level of moral quite low. If there are only 3 nations, the level of society will be upper and moral also. And only 2 nations, it will be again upper. The main way for coalition nation.
So Bruno,
As the play was made also for Wargamer, there is a possibility to uh, to um, win the game alone for them, because there is a secret aim for each coalition nation.
But what you see, see an example here, that's a secret aim cards. So at the start of the game, every coalition player draw a card. If Russia draws this card, Russia will use, of course, the Russia condition. If another nation draws this card, they will use the 4 other nation condition as a secret aim.
okay, so that's the thing that I think is really interesting. So as you were saying, Bruno, the wider the coalition, the lower the threshold for society for victory. So for example, and that's what we see here. So if you have 4 coalitions together, their society level needs to be to only exceed 8 instead of 10 if they were only 2.
Yes, yes.
But then within that coalition, once they won collectively, players can reveal a secret aim and end up winning alone. Is that the whole idea?
Correct.
And what happens if both of those players have their secret aim fulfilled? Like, is it do they win together still, or?
Yeah, they will win together. But anyway, the main aim is to win against Napoleon. That is the principle of the game.
And can there be infighting within the coalition, or there
Yes.
is no? Yes.
Yes, yes. And by the way, that's where alliances are very important, because normally in the game, you cannot. The game is based on zone, as you see. So it's a zone movement. Let's say the Prussian move in one zone. Let's say I put a Prussian player in Belgium, for example, and I have Austrian player just behind. If the Austrian player cannot enter the zone, if there is no alliance, formal alliance between the two. An alliance is not just 2 players telling each other we are allies. No, in this game, to do a formal alliance, you need to spend diplomacy points, you need to spend money, and there is a formal process. And if this process is not done, they cannot enter the same zone, and if they do, it will trigger automatic combat between them. So they really need to form alliance. And by the way, also the French can neutralize alliance by spending diplomacy points, and the French may also sometimes do a forced alliance with an ally coalition nation, except England. And sometimes will do that to disrupt, of course, the move of the allies.
Okay, that's really interesting. You started talking about a bit combat, and I know it's not like a war-focused game, but I was just curious about how does combat works in this game?
So it's quite simple, and again, it's here that you see it's not a war game, but even if it's not a war game, it is not completely simple, and there are some tricks. I would say it's not a war game because, for example, you don't have a line of supply, you don't have things like that. But anyway, you have to buy your movement points, and you have to plan for your campaign I would say at a strategic level. But on a tactical level, there is no supply, thing like that. There is also a very low part of there is no very low part of randomness for the resolution, because basically if you have an overwhelming force against a smaller force, there is no chance that the smaller will win. Basically, each unit has a strength. So here you see infantry has 1, artillery has 2, cavalry has 1. So let's say the French attack. Let's say these two are allies. So if they are allies, they are allowed to be in the same place. So the French attack these two. So it's going to be 4 points of the French against 2. Okay, it's going to be in that case.
It will be 5 points.
5 points. 5 points because it's a corps. Yes, it's a corps. When you have one infantry, 1 artillery, and 1 cavalry, you have bonus of 1 because you consider to be in a corps formation. You have combined arms, so you have bonus of 1. So in that case, it's 5 versus 2. 5 versus 2 is attacker divided by defenders
greater than 2.
Greater than 2. So it's a strategic victory. To be fair, there is 1 dice to be rolled and 1 die which can add 1 point or add 1 point or subtract 1 point. So marginally, there is a small marginal impact of dice. But let's say if you were attacking at 7 to 2, it's going to be 2 times for sure. The die might play when you are just at the exact amount.
Yes.
Which is the case here, for example, more or less the case here. So, and then after there is a direct resolution, and in that case, let's say it's over 2. One defender unit will be recruited. It's the way. In fact, there are some units will the French army will be able to gain 1 free unit and by destroying an enemy unit. And the other one will one effect. You have the defender lose half of this unit and retreat by paying movement points. You see also that you gain 1 moral point for the attacker. You lose one moral point for the defender, and you can also play 1 card, one effect. You can also have a free card play, irrelevant of advisor, and so it's a bonus because you are allowed to play a card on society, finance, or diplomacy.
That's a way for Napoleon to join the 14 level of society.
Yes, tactically, because playing society points is always complex. So sometimes you use a battle one to be able to have more allowance to play cards, and you play cards because you are victorious, and it's helping you on some track like moral or like society also.
Okay, so
in fact, for the combat, there is only the combat effect, which can be a surprise, but anyway, the meeple will be visible for everybody, so everybody knows that there can be a surprise with the combat effect.
Yeah, I show you a combat effect. For example, this one, you see Grenadier Heroic. That means that, for example, all infantry are +2 strength points. So in that case, the French would have 2 points more. So would move from 5 to 7, for example, playing that card. But if this card, by the way, is a coalition card, so if the coalition had a combat effect and was to play this card in combat, the French would have 5 points because 1 point for core bonus. The Allies, if I'm not wrong, would have 6 points, Bruno, because they would gain 2 points for each infantry, and in that case, the French will lose the battle. And so that will be typically a trap. The French attack with 5 against 2, saying, so I'm comfortable, I'm at 2-time defender, I'm sure to win. But finally, the Allies play these cards, get a strong bonus, a bonus which is, of course, very strong because you have 2 infantry benefiting from it at the same time. And it would be a situation where defender would be 5 versus 6, so it would be a draw.
And just to have a bit of a sense for the game, so Bruno, you were saying at the beginning of our chat that the game was quite fast to play. How long is a full game of Napoleon's Conquest?
In fact, it is about 3 hours, and maybe moreover if you drink a glass of beer during the party.
So you recommend specifically beer and not wine for the game? Like the pairing
only
is
white wine.
Okay,
Wine
good.
is better.
It's important to have a proper pairing, I think, with the game. So beer or white wine, that's really fair. And do you usually see more of a coalition victory or more a Napoleonic victory? What would you say is the balance?
About the balance, it is very simple. About more than 30 game, there will be 20 automatic victory and 40% for Napoleon and 60% for allies. And it was always with the same team of evaluation. And what I want to add, we will have more than 15 game completely different. It is a strong point of the game. You don't make always the same game.
Yeah, I've played Napoleon, and would be surprised to see Napoleon winning 40% of the time, because I tell you that it's difficult as soon as the allies start to succeed by doing alliance. It's difficult to play because for the battle you are very strong if you move last, because when your enemy has moved, then you can react and attack where is weak. And against allies, it's difficult to move after 2 allies. Keep in mind that it is a multiplayer game, and in multiplayer game, each time a party is strong, the other can effectively coordinate and rebalance the game. So I think that overall balance, like all multiplayer games, is quite good, because if there is one party winning, the other will come at it. And for example, if Napoleon feels that he is too weak and is too difficult, what will happen is that the coalition will see that they are in position of winning, and they will start to divide against
each other. They would
each other to get their specific victory, and in that case, France might get another chance. So that's the way I saw the game developing.
And Bruno,
I just want to add, we don't speak about Napoleon victory condition. In fact, the most prestigious victory is to invade Moscow and Berlin or Vienna. And I've got one Napoleon who makes that twice. The most common victory of Napoleon is to invade, to control Berlin and Vienna, and also Roma and Madrid. It was the case for the most of victory of automatic victory of Napoleon. And keep in mind that when Napoleon is not in good military condition victory, he can shift to the society victory condition, which can be a very good B plan if you are not so strong on the map.
Okay,
the victory about England, I don't have any Napoleon who success with invasion of England. Only once Napoleon failed with the dice. On roll dice, he was unsuccessful.
But just to be clear, Bruno, so that means that the Napoleonic player at some point in the game can decide to shift their victory condition, right? They can so it's at their own discretion to decide to go for a military victory or for a more political, so a society victory. How does it?
Not exactly.
How does that?
When on the third or fourth turn, Napoleon sees that it will not be able to success to Moscow or to Berlin and Vienna. He can shift to play more society effect, to join the 14 level of society, and go back to France to control France. And then it will be also an automatic victory for Napoleon.
But that's really interesting to have those very different victory condition. I guess that in play you also have to pay attention to those, and that must lead to quite a few discussions around the table. I'm curious, maybe going back to you, Walter, about what attracted you in Bruno's game and why you wanted to publish it next to the other games that you published, because you've published Verdun, you've published the Wars of Religion, and this would be your third game, right? Or was there another one in between?
Of course, because yes, Trench War also.
Oh yeah,
small game. Yeah, that's the fourth game for Fellowship. What attracted me is that it was what like kind of game in between a board game and war game. It was in between. It's not a war game, but it's not another classic board game with like there are thousands of them, and this one had a very strong, of course, historical flavor. I like this kind of hybrid situation between war game and board game. It's worker placement, card driven, a lot of mechanisms which are very fun to play, and with an overlay of history, and a deep one, because again 200 cards, a lot of richness in terms of events, etc. So I like that. Of course, I played it. I had fun, and so it's just as simple as that. It was fun to play, even if again it's not to be compared with a Napoleonic War, Empire in Arms, or Napoleon against Europe, because it's not supposed to generate the exact historical velocity, military momentum of the real campaign. But at the same time, even if you don't have the exact military rendering, you have a feel of managing different front, managing the alliance, managing a lot of trade-off, which is very immersive. What I love in that game. Also the multiplayer aspect is quite fun. It convinced me, and I'm very happy to have this one done.
And maybe to just wrap up this discussion, I'm curious about the Kickstarter campaign itself. So we are currently in the middle of the Kickstarter campaign. It's a short one, so we're recording this on Saturday the 4th. I think you still have 10 days of campaign ahead of you.
It's less than 10. I think it's finishing in 9 days or so. There is more or less 1 week left. It was a 15-day campaign. I did this campaign to widen the audience of the game, because, as you know, I'm based in France, and the visibility of Fellowship is still small, especially in the US. So this campaign was used to show that there was another game on Napoleon and this kind of board game. In 7 days, the campaign will be done, but it's not a classic Kickstarter. The game is done. The game is printed. It has already, by the way, I start shipping for pre-order yesterday, so it will ship as soon as the Kickstarter campaign will clear, which is a few days after the end of the campaign. So it's a way to widen the audience and to get the opportunity for a Kickstarter backer to access the game.
And there is I think you've printed in France a limited print run. I think it's 250 copies in French and 250 in English.
Yes. Because again, it was produced in France. There is a lot of component in the game, so it was very costly to produce the game. So it was difficult for me for a first print to print 1,000 and to take the bet. So I had to do a limited print, and hopefully it will fly, and we'll see later if there is enough room for reprint. But at this stage, there are 250 box in English. I have maybe another 100 to do in Ziploc or reprint box if needed. but it is a limited print anyway because there are a lot of components, and I was not able to print 1,000 at start.
So it might be the Kickstarter is probably a good opportunity to make sure that you get one of those 250 because it might be. Yeah.
Yes, but because now I think that nearly 45% of the stock is already reserved.
Okay, but that's really interesting, and I just wanted to talk maybe about that specific aspect. So you've produced all of your games in France, and I was wondering about that. So when most of them are publishing in China, I would say. Some of them sometimes print in Eastern Europe, but this is pretty rare. What made you make that decision of deciding I'm going to print at home?
First of all, it's when possible, it's really great to work with people in your country. I'm not a green extremist, but it's better to avoid the shipping around the world if possible, of course. And by the way, maybe one day I will be forced to find other supplier elsewhere if I have to do a bigger series or some specific project. So, but as long as possible, I'm trying to do that in France because there is, besides the fact that there is a short circuit for production, it's also helping me to see the development of the game more or less piece by pieces, because the production factory is 20 kilometers from my home, so I can go to the factory and see the game in progress. There is a price for that, and maybe some future project will be done elsewhere, and maybe I will continue in France. But so far, yes, this one so far was done in France. The only pieces which were imported are the small wood pieces, which happen to be impossible to source in France.
Yeah.
But everything else has been done there.
Okay, and before we finish this discussion, I was wondering what's coming up next for Fellowship of Simulation. So we've got Verdun.
A lot of things because this year and it's already announced on the site. We have Vendée 93, which is a game, of course, on the first year of the war in Vendée, but done by Pascal Toupy with a system he has already used in other games. Low complexity with cards. This one coming this year. I have another one probably coming this year also, which I still have to announce in details, which is called Révolution. It's a political game on the French politics on the 19th centuries. So player will play a Bonapartiste, royalist, socialist, etc. So every player will play a political faction, and the aim of the game will be to vote laws and to change the form of the state according to your ideology. So it's a super original game. It's by the way, it's a reprint because it has already been printed very small run by the designer himself as a limited nearly private print. So we are going to reprint it with some development on top of it. So this one could be printed this year or at least early next year. And next year also have my own pet project, which is Russia's War, which is a Russian front division level for Barbarossa.
A small project.
Small and one of the work of my life. So that's something I'm currently playtesting, and which is, I would say, a massive project, but I have a lot of hopes on that one.
Okay, but that's great to hear.
The hopes is to have at least a Barbarossa game which will have the real dynamics of Barbarossa, because I'm a collector of Barbarossa game for 40 years, but when you read books, you see that today the war games are not able to provide the same the real momentum of this campaign. So I'm trying to find a system which is providing the real momentum of Barbarossa.
Okay, but I would be really curious to
Happy to
see
discuss that also one day.
Yes, yeah, of course. I think it would be a good follow-up to our discussion about David Glantz. And for you, Bruno, do you have any other design projects, or you're done? You've done Napoleon's Conquest, and you're done with.
No, for the moment, maybe we are thinking about a game on Napoleon, but only with cards.
Hmm.
And anyway, I just want to conclude that for any gamers, I think that they will find some anecdote that they never see before. And my preferred is, that Napoleon sells Louisiana to American, but American don't have enough money to pay it. So they borrow money to English bank. That means that finally it is England that pay for the creation of the big army of Napoleon.
That's an interesting. It's an interesting fact. I wasn't aware of it, but I think it's a perfect way to conclude that chat. I would like to thank both of you for being here, and I would like to extend the invite once the games have been shipped and the campaign is done. I'd like to organize a 5-player game of Napoleon's Conquest, and it would be great to have either one of you to maybe facilitate that game and see the game in action. But thanks for presenting this. Good luck with the Kickstarter campaign, and speak to you soon.
Thank you, Fred.